I'm your host, John Tobacco. I've been walking these streets through the caverns of Wall Street, pounding the pavement for 25 years. This is Federal Hall. The capital of capitalism is right behind me. This is where the politics meets the economy, and we're gonna bring it all to you here on What's the Deal. We're bringing you real experts with real understanding, not talking heads, not guys who manage their mommy and daddy's money. Dan Viola is the founder of the Blockchain Shift Conference. We'll be the only show on television that every week has one whole segment based on cryptocurrency.
This market is a $2.8 billion market right now.
And they're not going to remove the president from office. What they're going to do is every day on national TV is field strip his administration.
There's no incentive to work across the aisle.
Tell me, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
Free donuts for everyone.
Great.
What's the deal? And away we go for the fourth straight week. The brain trust at Newsmax TV has allowed us to bring you another wonderful episode of What's the Deal? Bring you a diverse group of political personalities and break down the ideas without a lot of yelling and screaming, where all voices are heard. This week I have an esteemed panel with me again. Of course, my producer and confidant, Frank Morano, joins me. And on the Republican side, in this corner, we have a former Republican representative from New York, Nan Hayworth. Nan, thank you for joining us on What's the Deal today.
Happy to be with you.
And Rob Taub is with us. He's a humorist covering politics, pop culture, does tons of television. He's a global ambassador for diabetes and diabetes prevention. And he also is a columnist with our parent station, Newsmax TV at newsmax.com.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being with us. So when it comes to the midterm elections, it seems like just about everybody you meet is an expert, but all of the so-called experts seem to have no idea what they're talking about. What's happening in the upcoming election? What does it mean for the future of our country? And what does it mean for the next 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency? Let's ask our expert panel. Nan, let's go to the ladies first model.
I was thinking about the geography of the state of New York, the geology of the state of New York. In the Hudson Valley, which I was privileged to represent in Congress, we are underlain by a lot of slip faults. Just small breaks in the crust where movement occurs, sometimes almost undetectably. Eventually, all of that can add up to a fairly major shift. And I think one of the reasons the experts have had so much trouble, the career folks have had so much trouble predicting accurately what the electorate's going to do, is because there are so many ways in which constituencies are shifting. As we know, President Trump created a whole new electorate, essentially. It was not an orthodox Republican electorate from the standpoint of fiscal policy and trade, right?
Absolutely. And
more
Rob, we met with Steve Bannon last night at an airing of his documentary, and I said, more than an architect, you were kind of the cardiologist, because you put your finger on where those changing peoples were. And Rob, you think Trump figured out a way to tap into those people that are on those fault lines, like deciding red, blue, red, blue, red, blue?
We're always wondering about what's the approval rating. That's not as important as this maybe 15 to 20%, maybe as low as 12% of the people out there that can actually win an election for somebody. Plus, I've been writing for months now that there's not going to be a blue wave. It may be a blue mist if we're lucky, because we don't have boots on the ground journalists anymore. I will toot my own horn. I talk to people. I talk to them in the subway when we're stuck between stops, which happens constantly. Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo. And I talk to them on the bus. I talk to them in the post office. And in supermarkets is a great place. And you get the pulse of what people think and what's important to them. And Democrats have missed the boat.
Frankie, last night when we talked to Steve Bannon, he was saying that that day they were talking about, oh my God, the first exit polls came in, and they thought it was going to be like a landslide. There was a video on MSNBC of a guy hanging off a cliff, like with rocks falling on him.
They wished.
Bannon said everyone forgot the last 2 weeks. Trump, at 70 years old, got on a plane and was doing 5-6 rallies, and he out-hustled them You think Trump's last barrage here is similar to that?
I think it certainly helps, especially in the Senate races. I think, looking at the Senate map, I see no way that the Republicans lose the Senate at all. I think it's actually very likely that they pick up seats. And I was very interested to hear Nan's analysis of the race, because unlike 90%, maybe more, of the congressional races in the whole country, where we know 2 years from now and even 4 years from now who's going to win all these seats because they're so gerrymandered, she actually won in one of these purple districts, and then she lost in one of these purple districts by a couple of percentage points each time. So these margins in districts like her old one are razor thin. But the thing that Republicans should be cautious of, right, is that, and Democrats, by the way, is that if the Democrats take the House, Donald Trump, who is brilliant at casting villains, has the perfect villain for 2 years. For anything that goes wrong. Let's say there's an economic recession, he has a perfect poster child.
That's the worst thing you can give him.
Exactly. Can you imagine Nancy Pelosi as his punching bag for 2 years?
Oh, my God,
Because he can blame any lack of progress on the Democratic majority in the House.
Maybe he'll come up with a group nickname for the horrible House. Has ruined us.
The house.
He could do better
How
than
about
that.
the House of Horrors? Yeah.
Give me time. I'm sure Trump is the master nickname.
The haunted
Far
house.
better than I.
Haunted House.
The haunted house.
That's good,
I gotta
But
go.
by the same token, if the Republicans manage to hang on to the House, then Donald Trump, rightly or wrongly, is going to own any progress or lack thereof on the wall, on the economy, on terrorism, you name it. You go down the line. The opioid epidemic.
They'll get blamed.
If after 4 years of a Republican president and 2 Republican houses of Congress, there's any downward movement on any policy aspect, they're going to be responsible for that come 2020.
And consider this, the Republicans who are likeliest to lose are the ones from the swing districts. The purple districts. So we'll be left with all the folks from the deep red districts who have obstructed a certain amount of progress on the Republican side.
Steve Bannon said even the people that voted for Trump are afraid to say they voted for Trump.
Well, yes, there's a huge group of
Yeah.
people like that. And I was at a typical Taub family dinner of Upper West Side liberals. I think it was a Passover, and somebody was saying, I just can't imagine what the people are like who vote for Donald Trump. So I had to open my mouth and go, well, probably 6 of them at this table now that you don't know about.
And Rob had to come out of the closet. I'm from Staten Island, okay?
It wasn't me.
I'm not an Upper East Side liberal. I'm from Staten
That's
Island.
what they don't get. And
We sell floor coverings.
No, it is, but it's really true.
Pharmaceuticals.
we sell pharmaceutical products.
I agree with you. The most parochial publication in the entire United States is the New York Times. I mean, they really don't get beyond the
With
East River and
apologies to the
Hudson.
Washington Post.
Well, the Washington Post is the second, but it really, truly, there is a certain perspective, and they're great. They're great fun to read on the arts.
And
You know what we
And
used
on-
to say
even
about
on
the Times?
medicine,
I know this
but,
isn't politically correct. My father was
say
an
it.
old
Say
world
it.
journal.
That's what we're here for.
Owned by the Jews, written by the Irish, read by the Wasps.
That's
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Well, this wasp switched over to the Wall Street
pretty,
Journal.
sounds pretty factual.
The Sulzberger
I mean,
family used to
if-
say that proudly, I think.
If facts
Sure,
are
yeah.
politically incorrect, then we really have some
There you go.
serious
Those
problems.
of us who are Italian are still learning to read. So.
So we were talking about Trump's policies, including the wall. President Trump has been putting pressure to stop this migrant caravan from coming to the U.S.-Mexico border. What are the political ramifications, and coincidentally, they're going to just reach the U.S. border on midterm election day. So Trump's saying yesterday it's a national emergency, right? And he's going to order the troops to the border. So, Rob, is this the time?
This is Donald Trump at his worst, but I reviewed Anthony Scaramucci's book about him, and Anthony's whole point was Trump knows exactly what he's doing every time. If he had to go back and do it all over again, he would still say John McCain was not a war hero. But both parties are not being proactive about border troubles. They're being reactive. Forget about the wall. We still have people trying to come over in a caravan like this. Donald Trump is trying to tell us that some 6-year-old kid is a gun-toting terrorist. He's not. But the Democrats are speaking emotionally. This is terrible. What are we going to do? It's so horrible. But then tell us what we're going to do.
Okay, so my question then is this. If I round up 100 friends
Yeah.
and we start a caravan to march on the local bank,
Right.
And we have so many people that we can just overrun the front doors and the
Right.
3 security guards and take.
Right, 'cause you want money.
Should the cops just come in and start shooting the 100
Well,
people
I'll
for being
give
in the
you
caravan?
another thought, John. What if you marched on Nancy Pelosi's home?
Yeah.
Which is palatial, by the way. In,
Well, yeah, we're not calling for a march.
Pacific
on
Heights
that.
in
fair
San
analogy.
Francisco.
You're watching
but
What's the
seriously,
Deal?
but that's
and,
the thing. That's
Nan
the
Hayworth's
thing.
They can
the
come
deal
to my
because
house if they bring
she's
me some
organizing
some
a protest
deli.
at Nancy
No.
Pelosi's home.
No, but
I like
but
her.
that's the thing. Thank you, John. No, I'm by way of legality. No, I'm not suggesting. But here's what I am saying: the arguments that people like her make. I want to ask them. Okay, well, do you lock your doors at night? Or you just leave them open. I agree with Rob. There's a lot of emotion on both sides. There's a lot of need. There's no question. We live in a world full of need. So the realistic, productive question is, how do we solve it? We have to reach across party lines. We didn't get an immigration bill passed, and that was because of extremes
Well, we're
on
here
both
to-
the Democratic and Republican sides of
On
the
What's
House.
the Deal? We're here to answer those questions.
That's right.
So, Rob, you're Democratic leaning and objective.
I'm a Democratic centrist.
Okay, so
Socially liberal,
what-
fiscally
7,000
smart.
7,000 people are walking towards the border with no real asylum claim other than we want a better life and we want to get to America. The door is over there. That's where you go in and sign up. They're not going there. They're just coming. So what to do for a president to protect our safety?
Could invite them to Frank Morano's for pasta. I don't have the solution, and I think that this is something that has to be discussed. That's why I call my column centrist sentiments at Newsmax, because I'm not going to be a knee-jerk liberal. And this is the failing of politicians. This is what Scaramucci said in his book, why Donald Trump has been so successful.
Right.
Because people are furious. They've had enough. And you can't just speak emotionally from either side. But the Democrats' big problem is, so there's a healthcare problem. We're going to give everybody free healthcare. Well, it's not as simple as that. You can't just offer that and walk away.
What are, and you mentioned it too, John, what are the millions and millions that we send hundreds of millions to Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador to try to promote democracy, to try to promote, presumably, free enterprise? Where is that getting us? I mean, it's just good money after bad. I mean, it's certainly been written about. Dambisa Moyo wrote a great book called Dead Aid about how money shifted, sent to Africa. If we just send
Well,
money
what
to
about the
people,
Philippines?
what happens? Right.
How did Emil
the
DeMarcos
warlords get
own
it?
$5 billion
Exactly.
worth of real estate in Midtown Manhattan?
Right.
It was from our tax dollars.
Exactly.
That was aid going to the Philippines that
Exactly.
the people never got.
Exactly.
Why is Haiti still the worst place in the third world with
Right.
all the money we've given them?
Yeah.
Right.
Where's that
Exactly.
gone?
I thought she had
Exactly.
$5 billion just in shoes.
Probably
Imelda-
just
Imelda Marcos.
She had very expensive shoes, but she owned a lot of real estate in Midtown Manhattan.
First
That's
country
right.
to have a
Mind-boggling.
shoe-backed currency.
We
That's
are going
right,
to take
that's
a
right.
quick break. You're watching What's the Deal? It's the alternative NFL programming block here on Newsmax TV. We have Nan Hayworth, Rob Taub, Frank Morano with us, and plenty more coming up right after this. Incivility is everywhere on both sides. We're going to break it all down from Maxine Waters and Donald Trump and everybody that says all of the craziest stuff, and it's starting to hurt both sides very badly. We'll be back right after this. In the last few weeks, former Attorney General Eric Holder said of his Republican opponents, when they go low, we kick them. Hillary Clinton recently said there is no more room for civility in politics until the Democrats win. Mitch McConnell and his wife Elaine Chao were harassed at a restaurant when just going out to dinner. And in Manhattan, the Republican Party headquarters was vandalized by Antifa. And then, of course, we have this gem from Democrat Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
It's clear to me. And I just think the American people had better understand what's going on. This is a bunch of scumbags. That's what they are.
Those are very
who
strong
all
words,
organized around making money.
Who do you mean by that when you call them scumbags? Who are you talking about?
All of these people who are organized with these oil and gas interests that's
You mean
in
this-
the administration and friends
you're calling the
of the
Secretary-
President of the United States, this back channeling that you see, these are a bunch of scumbags.
Secretary
That's
of
what they
State?
are.
You mean the Secretary of State of the United States?
So, my panel joins me again. Are we entering into a new era in which politics is no longer defined by civil discourse, but by violent rhetoric and threats.
Nan?
Well, Rob, thank you. And
My
may I
esteemed
say,
colleague,
yes,
Nan?
exactly.
You guys
May
got to
I
start
say,
screaming at one another to keep
I'm
up your
grateful
party's
indeed for the
reputations.
opportunity to have civilized discourse with my friend Rob, and we shall continue to do so.
I like parliamentary procedure. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I
like
make a
a
motion that you two
professionalism.
hug.
Yeah. But very seriously, what worries me most, the delegitimization of the other side, whoever we perceive the other side to be. I think President Trump's election definitely was a catalytic point for a lot of Democrats. I think a lot of Republicans have responded in kind. So nobody has, completely clean hands in all of this.
One of my favorite political mentors is Roger Stone. And he says, one man's dirty trick is another man's political discourse. But it's kind of almost like a football game too. That when all's said and done, you don't have to be best friends, but you can shake hands and you scrapped it out.
And you
leave
end
it
up
on
with
the field.
chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
And when Maxine Waters is saying things that are specifically at not Trump, his friends, his supporters, his people are scumbags. How can this woman ever be handed a gavel for anything?
Well, I don't know how she thinks she's going to convert any of those folks to her way.
But that's the thing with gerrymandering. She doesn't have to. As long as the Democrats get the majority by one vote, as long as she's reelected, which in her district she could say whatever she wants. She certainly will be. Right. She'll still be the chairperson of the Financial Services Committee, right? So there's no incentive to work across the aisle. I think it points to a broader problem with our system of politics. Is that 90% of these districts, it rewards extremism.
I agree with you.
If they're wait, breaking news. We've all agreed on a topic.
All right, we better mix it up. We better get off.
Not the first time today.
That's the end of today's show.
Things have to evolve, and they're not logically for the Democrats, and they're going now to extremism because their regular platforms are really failing them.
Right.
Give, and they're not in touch with the party. They don't know what people want. I wrote about this in my column last week for Newsmax, where I said, I'd been complaining for weeks in the column that the Democrats don't have a platform. Then I offered some platforms, infrastructure, which they don't deal with, and I really attacked Joe Biden for saying, we're going to give everybody, and you have to start crying when he does it. We're going to give everybody free 2-year college education. In the 1970s, that would have been great.
There's no such thing.
Now, teach us about technology and how to fix a robot. That's going to be the new plumber.
And in fact,
of the
the White
future.
House is pushing for that. I agree with you, Rob. And I will say that you've hit on something big, which is that being unfortunately devoid of ideas that are proven to work well is a problem that is on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, our challenge is this, and I know just what you're talking about, Rob, in terms of, my Democratic colleagues would always say, you have a problem, I'm going to solve your problem. I'm going to give you a program, or I'm going to give you a check. Oh, by the way, with someone else's money, but it's always free. There's no such thing as free. That's all taxpayer paid for. The Republicans take it upon ourselves, generally, to make clear we can't afford to give you everything. Government's not good at that. In fact, government is wretched at that.
We're terrible.
Right.
Safety net.
But
that's what people.
But then
we're
to
supposed
get
to
to the
give
next
people, safety
step,
net,
we have to
security.
tell people, right, I'm going to give you the freedom to be able to realize your own dreams, and we're not going to confiscate from you what you earn.
Well, John,
but that's a tougher message
Rob,
for some
what do you
people.
think
You just mentioned something. The government's getting worse and worse at this.
Yeah.
That's the real issue. Is government programs used to work a lot better. The more bloated we get, they just can't do it. They're not delivering what they're promising, and I don't know if they're capable of doing it anymore.
Whatever dollar you leave in the public's pocket, I know, having been in government, whatever dollar you leave in the public's pocket is going to be far more productive.
Well, here's an example I use all the time. Nobody ever wakes up in the morning and goes, today's going to be a great day. I'm going to the Department of Motor Vehicles to renew my license.
Right.
This is going to be the worst, most miserable day of my life. So
I
do
agree.
you want those same imbeciles running healthcare for you? And I'm saying this maybe more as a libertarian than as a Democrat, but Would I like free healthcare for people? Would I like to
not
serve
free.
everybody that way? Yes. Do I
Not
think
free.
it's possible? Never in a billion years.
Today we broke it down. We got to the real deal. We got a whole bunch of views on a whole bunch of subjects, and I hope it gave you a little more food for thought. Coming up after this, we met up with over 100 companies that are innovators and entrepreneurs and trying to use blockchain technology and cryptocurrency to make the world a better place and to get the government out of our bank accounts. It's libertarian, it's lovely, and it's all the crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain you ever wanted and more. Coming up from Miami right after this. You're watching What's the Deal?
Now we continue our coverage here from the Blockchain Shift Conference. I'm John Tobacco. You're watching What's the Deal on Newsmax TV. I got to sit up really straight now because this guy's gigantic. Joining me for a few minutes on the token tank today is Con Davis. Con, thanks for giving us a few minutes today. And Con's the lead investment banker at Amerex. Amerex is one of the forerunners in the security token space, bringing investment banking services, advisory services to a number of companies here at the Blockchain Shift Conference and abroad. What's happened in blockchain and crypto over the last couple of years has been like phenomenal growth, right? And a lot of people watching this show, one of the things that we try to do is educate them, and not just say, oh, this is the best. And, you know, trying to actually tell people what's good, what's not good, what to look out for. And I know you guys over at Amerex, you have like an eagle-eye view. What do you see happening in the marketplace right now, and where do you see this whole thing going, in your professional opinion?
Well, you know, I think the market's evolved rapidly over the last year and a half. And you saw what looked to be a real speculative bubble at the end of 2017 and into early 2018. And since then, we've had quite a bit of a shakeout in the market. And there's been a movement towards security tokens, which is really the focus of our firm, doing regulated offerings. And I think what you get with a regulated security token offering is a degree of compliance, due diligence, and checks and balances in the space, which can provide investors greater degree of confidence. You know, we've done due diligence on probably 90 to 100 projects over the last 6 months. So we really don't have the resources, the capabilities to do all of the quality projects that we have. We want to work with the best of breed. We want to provide great opportunities to the investors and have repeat opportunities with those investors. And you know, so our interests are very much aligned with our clients. And that's our focus. Our focus is to bring quality deals to market. So I think in the coming weeks and months, you'll see a bit more stability and interest around the security token space, but there's still a lot of skepticism because of the volatility that's occurred in the marketplace.
What are the key things that you look at? Because I've been on Wall Street for 25 years.
Sure.
And we both know there's a lot of scammers out there.
Yep.
Right? What are the key things that you see when you're like, what do you see and say, oh, I see that, this is not a deal for me? You know what I mean? Give me like a couple of the red flags that investors should, hey, if you see this, run.
Sure. I think if you look at FINRA and SEC regulations and you look at many of the things that they caution investors to look out for, like exceeding returns, guaranteed returns, things that just, there's no free lunch in the market, things that just really don't exist.
Sinking funds that are paying you back with your own money. Right?
Or sometimes affiliations with credible parties, like we have a relationship with X Fortune 50 company.
Yeah.
Vetting that out and making sure that relationship actually exists, because I've seen a lot of projects where people don't even realize that they may be stomping on some very, very soft ground,
right,
in terms of leveraging someone else's brand or relationship that they might not have a contractual obligation with. So a lot of what we do is doing due diligence on projects and digging into both the macro business case for the actual project and for the sector, and then all the way down to who the principals are, who the management team is, whether or not they may be full-time employees or part-time guys working on this and trying to raise capital and say, I'll go after it if I hit it.
Sure.
You know, we want people that are really aligned and fully in and have the team to execute on the plan. Because in many cases, this is really development capital.
Right.
They don't have a functioning business yet. So you're picking not only a horse that you think has a great plan, but the ability to run the race.
And that horse is not even born yet.
Exactly.
In most instances.
Yeah, and you're actually betting on the breeding of that horse, perhaps,
Yeah,
as you say.
one of the big problems I've been hearing that you're having over at Amorex is, unfortunately, you got to sit next to Mikey Carpinello.
That's got its bonuses and its
It does.
weaknesses.
No.
Mike's a great guy.
Kidding around. I love Mikey's my boy.
We're
I
glad
love
to have
him.
him on the
Busting
team.
chops. Thank you very much. Con, we'll check back with you in a few weeks, maybe.
Absolutely.
Thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be back right after this. Continuing coverage right here of the Blockchain Shift Conference in Miami. You're watching What's the Deal on Newsmax TV. There's so many great people walking around this place, but I turned around and I see Wall Street legend Simon Labrati standing right next to me. I said, you got to come on the show, Simon, because this guy is a legend. He's known around the world for legendary trading, legendary entrepreneur, and legendary party guy, too. I mean, he's the guy. We had some fun together.
We had some great fun. Well, thank you very much for this introduction. It's really
Simon,
nice.
you're the best. And years ago, you were a forerunner in building a monster day trading shop. And now I see a lot of those nation opportunities starting to bubble up in blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Why don't you tell our audience what you're doing these days? Because if you're doing something, you're usually on the cutting edge. What's happening with you these days?
Well, these days, what I'm doing, as you know, I built a pretty large trading company where we were financing people around the world. And our main goal was always to look after the traders to make sure that the costs were low enough so that they could actually make money and become profitable. And this is something that we did achieve. I looked into the crypto world and I looked into blockchain technology, and it really interested me a lot because there's so many things that people need to understand about blockchain, that it's not only about cryptocurrency. There's a lot of different things that, you know, blockchain can be used for. I was just recently asked to be president of a publicly traded company, which I'm not going to announce right now. It's going to be announced very shortly. But what we are looking to do is basically build an auditing tool for two industries, and could be used for many industries. But one of the ideas is like security for software licenses. So you know how Microsoft has, call it as an enterprise solution, they could have like 1 million licenses out there, but then people use their license and then they have maybe 12,000, 15,000 extra licenses that are not being paid for.
They rip them off.
They rip them off. So by using this tool and downloading the software on the blockchain, what that does, it gives the transparency to Microsoft and the owner or CEO of that company to see exactly how many licenses they're using, so they don't get caught with bills for auditing and bills for penalties and so on, which could be costly.
Our audience may not know this, but you buy one license and then you put it on a few different computers and you really got 5 people working it. And lo and behold, you go to sell your company or you go to raise money, and when they do the audit, they say, hey, wait a minute, you've been ripping off Microsoft for the last 10 years.
Right.
And by the way, God forbid Microsoft comes down to a bigger company, you're going to owe them a boatload of money.
Exactly, and you don't want to do that because that's a liability for your company. So this market is a $2.8 billion market right now, where we're looking to get a percentage of. And we think that we've built a technology that's going to be ready in November. And we're partners with Oracle, and I think it's going to be something great.
Can this technology possibly be used for the cannabis industry?
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, John, because we have actually approached governments in Canada and discussed with them the possibility of using the technology so that they could understand exactly on a transparent level what the quotas are, what you're growing, what you're selling, how much you're selling it for, so that the government can have a good idea of what's being sold out there, and they can have a good handle on it. So something that's very, very, very needed right now, especially in a business that's regulated. So you want to have transparency.
A lot of these cannabis companies and a lot of the regulation around them, they want to know, like, I've heard this term from seed to sold, Like they want to track this stuff from when did you plant the seed, when did it grow, where did it go, when did you sell it, right?
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
that whole audit chain is something that
we're doing. And
your
there's a
technology probably addresses as well.
Exactly. And there's a lot of companies that say that they can do that right now, but I don't believe it. I think that we build a product that we know we can use because we've tested it, and we think it's just going to be a great product. So that's what I'm doing on the blockchain. I came back, and I think this industry is amazing. I think it's the next wave of the revolution, of if you want to call it the technology revolution, and it's very interesting.
We both have known Dan Viola for some time, and Dan's the founder of this conference.
Yes.
How do you rate this conference for their first one ever?
Well, first of all, Dan has been my lawyer for 15 years. He got me into the business. I've always done everything according to what he advised us to do, and this conference and him being part of it is again proof that the market is shifting to this. I think he's done a great job. He's a great guy, and this conference to me is an absolute success for the first time.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic
over 1,500 attendees, VIP speakers, amazing entrepreneurs, hundreds of companies here presenting their wares, and on top of all that, we find the legend himself, Simon Labradi. Simon, thank you for giving us a few minutes on the token tank tonight. This is What's the Deal. This guy's the real deal, and we'll be back right after this.
Thank you. Thanks. That was great.
Great.
This is for anyone who may be taken aback by my comments. I don't really care if you are. I hope you are. For years now, it has been, 2.5 years since he officially entered the political arena.
Donald Trump, congratulations. You have made this country a land where sleaze is not just the language of politics, but the political environment itself.
His supporters made excuses, continue to make excuses for him. You also might want to do some self-examination. What does it say about you that no matter what, you continue to make excuses for this man, for his vile behavior, this sort of vile behavior? Doesn't that make you just as bad, if not worse, than him? And for all of you who over the last few years have uttered that tired, lazy, uninformed, uneducated, ignorant response of calling me and others who point out racist behavior racists, you know what you can go do?
Trump.
We begin with several developing stories here on a Friday night. First, the violent and bloody clashes outside a Donald Trump event.
Violent scuffles ensued, all of this becoming a part of a pattern of unrest fueled by antagonism and divisive rhetoric.
Kelly Burke is charged with disorderly conduct. Investigators say she was screaming obscenities at a teenage girl, all because she was wearing a T-shirt supporting President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump's campaign is surrounded by controversy this morning after a weekend of chaos and violence.
It is a result of the culture of Trump supporters.
We need a revolution.
Are you suggesting that the entire Trump vote was racist and by racists?
I think yes.
Punch some people in the face. Trump supporters harassed, beaten, and bloodied by mobs of protesters. Who ruled it?
These are anti-Donald Trump protesters.
He's bleeding bad.
No, he's bleeding bad.
He's bleeding bad. He's bleeding bad.
The man viciously beaten, all because he voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, he's bleeding. Yo. Bleeding.
This is tough stuff. We're fighting a war.
No Trump, no wall, no USA at all.
Hey, it's John Tobacco. You're watching What's the Deal on Newsmax TV.
We're on location tonight in my hometown, Staten Island. We're lucky enough to get a few minutes with Steve Bannon.
Hey,
Steve,
brother.
Thank you for coming
Thank
to
you.
Staten Island. Thank you for still
I
carrying the
love
message.
I love Staten Island.
Man needs no introduction. Chief White House strategist for Donald Trump, former executive chairman of Breitbart, and now Citizens for
American Republic, right? A C4,
yep. Your C4 company, your C4 entity that you put together to keep telling people that we need to still fight for the Trump message.
It's the Trump program. Basically, it's the populist, economic, nationalist message of Trump. You know, heritage. You know, the conservative movement has all these great institutions. I felt like the Trump movement and Trump's populism, his economic nationalism, needed a home. So we're both an idea generator. We do communications and kind of grassroots organizing. So it's basically to do things like saw tonight, make films and get them out to the deplorables.
Raise the awareness,
yes.
remind people.
Yes. What we're fighting for.
Steve, a lot of people have called you the architect, this, that. I always say you're like the cardiologist because you figured where the pulse was. You put your finger on the pulse of America.
I'm gonna steal that one.
Yeah, you can. I always say you like the cardiologist because you put your finger right on the pulse and said, hey, here are the people that are forgotten. These are the forgotten people. And now you got people like Maxine Waters going on national television saying, we, the Trump supporters, not Donald Trump, but we, the Trump supporters, are scumbags.
Well, this is what, okay, in the film, this movie, Trump at War, there's a 5-minute prologue before actually the film starts. It's like an opera, right? You get all the themes in there. What I did, because I saw this and it upset me, so what we did is went back and we picked a couple of folks, like Chris Matthews, but principally Don Lemon. Because Don, you know, whether you like him or not, he's lecturing you every night.
Yeah.
And here's what he's lecturing on. He's not saying it's Donald Trump's a racist. He's saying you're racist. You're racist. And that's what, and so what I did is went back and cut all the footage that you've seen from these news organizations of the violence done, and you guys know because you were attacked, of the violence done to folks wearing red hats. And that's why, and if we put this in theaters, I think it would be NC-17 for violence and language. So his first 5 minutes are over the top. Brutal.
But you need it. Because people got to realize that this thing means impeachment. Not that they're going to get him out of office, but they're going to grind him into salt.
So this is what
hard to grind.
This is what concerned me. I heard some talk in the spring that people were saying, oh, you know, if we lose the House, it's not going to be bad because Trump, you know, loses the Democrats, Trump. Well, here's what they don't know. They don't know that the Democratic Party comes out of the big cities, and they don't know a guy like Jerry Nadler. You know, whether you like him or not, they play hardball. And Jerry Nadler said, hey, I'm taking over judiciary, and here's my 52 investigations are going to start.
That's right.
So I said, whoever's telling the president that even a possibility of losing the House, that they're going to sit there and work with you in prison reform, I said no. What they're going to do is take the Mueller report, they're going to vote it in as an official document, they're going to form a select committee, they're going to have killers like Jerry Nadler and Schiff, and they're going to have Maxine Waters, that whole crowd on there.
Of course.
And they're going to start, and they're not going to remove the president from office. What they're going to do is every day on national TV is field strip his administration.
Absolutely.
The stakes couldn't be higher.
Do you think what Trump tapped into is that purple people, that they're maybe they're pro-life, but they're anti-gun? Maybe they're pro-gun and anti-life.
I think it goes back to your show. Remember, what Trump tapped into is the working class and lower middle class in this country that have been died out of the deal. But remember, and with the elites in this country, not in the room, not in the deal. And in fact, it's gotten to be not in the room, you're on the menu. Okay? And what basically Trump is, he is your representative in the room. And he's relentless. And so when you say, what's the deal? It's basically Trump saying, hey, you know what? These guys are the backbone of the country. These are guys that don't ask for anything. They're the ones it's on their shoulders, right? They're paying the taxes. It's their kids in the Hindu Kush and on the 38th parallel. They need a voice in the room. He's that voice.
And he said things like, answered the question, what's the deal? What's the deal with ISIS? I'm going to bomb out of them. Right?
Destroy him.
I'm saying, he just said it like it is.
Right. And he took it down by the physical caliphate. Remember, people forget this. In 2014, the caliphate of ISIS had Mosul, had Raqqa, had 8 million people. They were taxing people. It was a more vibrant state than Syria or Iraq. And what Trump said, he came in his inaugural speech, because I went over this line with him. He said, "We will we will rejuvenate old alliances and form new ones, and we will eradicate radical Islamic terror from the face of the earth."
Right.
And I told him at the time, I said, "Hey, that's a big check you're going to have to cash." He says, "We're in," and he told Mattis, in 1 year, I want the physical caliphate done. Now ISIS is still all over, but if you had told people, remember, and that's why in the film I had President Obama had gone back and said it's going to be generational. We're going to have to deal with ISIS caliphate for 50 or 75 years. Well, it was 12 months.
Yeah,
12 months.
Our audience at Newsmax really wants to hear from you on this. Was there one last thing that Trump had on Hillary that didn't come out in the campaign?
No, listen, with Hillary, I think it's very simple, is that, and I don't want to tout Clinton cash, but just go back and read, look, the corruption of the Clintons, right? Their ultimate corruption, I think, is shown in Clinton cash, where they had the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, and what she did when she was Secretary of State to put money in their pocket. Look, I'm a huge fan of Jeff Sessions. He's a dear friend. And I think he's done an amazing job in certain elements of Attorney General that you don't even see, law and order, the border, immigration. Where I do think he has failed is that I do think there should have been some investigations initiated on the Clintons. And this is what, remember, the Republican House is very weak about investigating, because as soon as the media starts trying, they back off.
They get queasy.
Jerry Nadler doesn't get queasy.
No.
Okay, these guys are killers. No. They're killers.
Jerry stays at the table for a long time.
He stays at the table. But I admire him in that. And so they're killers. So I think everything is sold by Clinton. I tell people, if you want to see about the corruption of the Clintons, go read Clinton cash. And by the way, they should be investigating. They should be investigating Uranium One, which is still an untold story.
Hillary's out in the press again. She's on tour. She's
running for president.
Tour.
She's running for president.
Is she running for president?
Absolutely. Okay, people should go back and look. Listen, first off, in Hillary's world, she goes, you can't be the champ until you beat the champ, right? Yeah. And she's sitting there and she's looking at Elizabeth Warren, she's looking at, Joe
Biden.
Joe Biden, she's looking at Kristen Gillibrand, she's looking at Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker. She's going,
that's the J.
She goes, I'm Hillary Clinton. If they want to take me on, and so here's what I said. It's like it's like these kids' vampire movies. You can't kill the vampire until you put the stake in its heart, right?
Yep.
If you go back and look at Rachel Maddow, the Rachel Maddow show, she gave that interview 3 weeks ago. Then she went to the Atlantic Ideas thing, and now she's on this tour. She's laying out her case against President Trump. She's laying it out there, and she's going to be in.
Do you think Hillary Trump 2.0 is the best thing that could happen to Donald Trump?
I think, quite frankly, I think it'd be another blowout. I think it'd be even bigger. But here's what I do think is going to happen. I'm not so sure she could win the Democratic nomination. I think she is. Here's what I think is going to happen. Right now, my view of this is first off, everything's about November 6th. That's the first reelect.
Yes.
So everything, I'm assuming that we hold the House, and so there's no impeachment process. If we hold the House on November 6th, the way I see it developing now is that President Trump will galvanize even more the Trump base on the right. They will have someone like a Kamala Harris or a Booker or a Bernie or some person that, because the Democrat Party will be to the left. And I think a guy like Bloomberg is sitting there and he's putting in $100 million, and I think he understands it can't be him, but I think he's going to look for a Mitt Romney. I think what they're going to argue is some sort of unity, one-time unity ticket, because they're going to say the country's too divided. You got the Trump people
Democrat
here.
and the reform.
And the reformer.
Someone like that.
That's what I think. I think Bloomberg, and for the New York audience, I think Bloomberg's got something up his sleeve.
We're at the Staten Island Hilton Garden Inn. You're watching What's the Deal on Newsmax TV. We're lucky enough to catch up with Steve Bannon. Steve, one last question. What's one thing that Trump's got to do better? One thing.
No. So the signal and the noise. The noise is the flashbang grenades every day of the the tweets and everything like that. And I just think, if you like the signal and the signal's strong, you see him going down the path, you're going to have to live with, Stormy Daniels being called horseface. It comes with, it comes with, if you buy in, you buy in. And this is coming from, that's the noise. This is coming from a guy that's tried to get him off Twitter before, but he wouldn't be where he is if he wasn't on Twitter. As he says, he's the Ernest Hemingway of 140 characters. So, no, I think you don't change. Look, at 71 years old and Trump, it's not going to change. It is what it is.
Well, we got the cardiologist of the Trump campaign. He put his thumb on the pulse of America and started the Make America Great theory that put Trump in office. Steve, thanks.
I want to say one last thing. I say Chris Ruddy and the Newsmax team, it's so great to have you have a show. I know it's going to be a great endeavor.
Thank you very much.